How good was Lewis Hamilton before Ferrari? The number itself is confirmed, on the record, published by the sport's own historians. 385 race starts, 105 wins, 204 podiums, 5,090.5 championship points, 104 pole positions, 68 fastest laps, 7 world titles. That part isn't up for debate. But here is the question that actually matters. The one that gets asked in every paddock corridor and every comment section. Was the man who arrived at Ferrari in 2025 still that driver? Still that Lewis Hamilton? Or had something already changed before he ever put on the red suit? Still that driver? Or not? That's the question. Think about it like this. 7 world titles is a number so large it stops meaning anything on its own. So picture it as 7 separate Olympic gold medals, in 7 separate 4-year cycles, against a different generation of rivals every single time. That's the scale of what preceded Ferrari. That's the resume that walked through Maranello's front door in 2025. And it's worth remembering it didn't start in a factory-run junior program either. Before any of the titles, before any of the podiums, there was a British Formula Renault campaign in 2003, an F3 Euro Series title run across 2004 and 2005, and a GP2 Series championship in 2006. The standard ladder, climbed in order, no shortcuts, before Formula One ever entered the picture at all. The stakes, in hard numbers, before speculation enters the conversation at all. Hamilton's first title came in 2008, in only his second F1 season. 98 points, 5 wins, 10 podiums, 7 poles. The championship decided by a single point after he passed Timo Glock on the final corner of the final lap, making him, at 23, the youngest world champion in the sport's history at that time. That alone would have been a career for most drivers. It wasn't the end of his. His second title came in 2014 at Mercedes. 384 points, 11 wins, 16 podiums, a 67-point margin over teammate Nico Rosberg, sealed in Abu Dhabi, in what remains one of the fiercest intra-team rivalries the sport has produced. The years that followed weren't a quiet stretch either. Further championships arrived in 2015, 2017, 2018, and 2019. A run that turned Hamilton and Mercedes into the dominant partnership of an entire era, one that redrew what a normal season looked like for every rival on the grid. Across that stretch, he wasn't just winning titles, he was rewriting the record book race by race. Pole positions piling up past 100, fastest laps accumulating past 60, podium finishes climbing toward a number, 204, that no other driver in the sport's history has matched. And in 2020, he equaled Michael Schumacher's record of 7 championships, then surpassed Schumacher's all-time win record with victory number 92 in Portugal, doing it in a season shortened by COVID, doing it after missing an entire race himself when he tested positive for the virus. His standout drive that year came on a soaking wet track in Turkey, where he sealed title number 7 in conditions most of the field could barely manage. Those are not estimates, those are the record books. Put that scale next to the rest of the grid, and the gap gets even harder to explain away. Only one other driver in Formula One history has matched Hamilton's 7 championships, and that comparison, Schumacher, an era apart, a different regulatory landscape, a different level of competition entirely, is usually where the greatest of all time conversation begins and ends. Every other driver currently racing, including the reigning champion, is still chasing a fraction of what Hamilton had already banked before Ferrari came calling. That's the baseline the 2025 season has to be measured against. Not, was it a bad year, but was it a bad year for a driver who had never had one before? So why does the question even need asking? Why does, how good was he before Ferrari, sound, to some ears, like a trick question instead of an obvious one? Because of what came next. And it builds in 3 stages, each one worse than the last. First, the form collapse. According to Formula One's own official records, neither Hamilton nor his new teammate Charles Leclerc won a single Grand Prix across the entire 2025 season. Not a shared statistic between 2 average drivers. a shared statistic between two drivers who, between them, had walked into that season carrying 9 world championships. Second, and more specific, Hamilton did not record a single podium finish in 2025. Not one. In a full campaign, in a season, from a 7-time champion. Some outlets have called it the first winless, podiumless season of his entire F1 career. And the data backs that framing up. A driver with 204 career podiums, going 12 months without adding a single one to the tally, in a car built by the most storied team on the grid. Third, and this is the one that stops being a stat and starts being personal. Hamilton was disqualified from the Chinese Grand Prix after his car's plank, the skid block underneath the floor, was measured below the FIA's mandatory minimum thickness. The numbers were exact: 8.6 millimeters on the left-hand side, 8.6 at the center line, 8.5 on the right, against a 9 millimeter minimum. A shortfall of half a millimeter wiped out a 6th-place finish worth 8 points. Half a millimeter. That's not a driving error. That's not a strategy call. That's a physical object, measured in a lab, falling short by a margin thinner than a coin, and it happened to a 7-time world champion in his rookie year, at the most famous team in the sport. The disqualification didn't even touch the sprint race he'd won the day before, which only made the contrast sharper. A Saturday victory that proved the pace was there, followed by a Sunday erased by less than a millimeter of carbon. That's the picture heading into 2026, a legend with unimpeachable career numbers, and a debut season at Ferrari that produced 6th in the standings, 156 points, and 0 trophies. Reports from inside the team throughout that winter pointed to Hamilton himself describing the year in blunt terms, framing his early months in red as less about results and more about relearning who he was as a driver, language that, according to paddock coverage, traced back not just to a difficult 2025, but further, to the aftermath of the contested 2021 championship finish in Abu Dhabi, a result some in the sport still describe as unfinished business even now. For a driver who had spent over a decade defining what dominance looked like in this sport, a season with no wins, no podiums, and a disqualification measured in fractions of a millimeter wasn't just a bad year on paper. It was the first real evidence, in public, that the gap between 7-time champion and still the fastest man in the car might not be automatic anymore. But here is where it gets complicated, because the story didn't end there, and neither did the number. On June 14, 2026, at the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya, Hamilton won the Spanish Grand Prix, his 106th career victory, his first win for Ferrari, his first win of any kind in nearly 2 years, and according to Formula One's official race report, it ended 686 days since his previous Sunday victory, the 2024 Belgian Grand Prix. Ferrari, according to their own team communications, called it the 249th win in the constructors' history, and noted the symbolism themselves. It came at the exact circuit where Michael Schumacher won his very first race in red. Coincidence, or the kind of detail paddock storytellers can't resist repeating? Either way, it happened. Planet F1 +3. The technical payoff here is short, because the drama isn't really about the technical details, but the details still matter. Ferrari started Hamilton on soft tires, and it didn't put him into the lead on lap 1, so they gambled. Ferrari committed to a 3-stop strategy, and picked up a free pit stop under a virtual safety car window, the kind of timing call that either looks like genius or looks like luck, depending entirely on whether the race in front of it goes your way. It went their way. Hamilton crossed the line nearly 20 seconds clear of the field in sweltering Spanish heat, and up front, the story handed itself to him. Race leader Kimi Antonelli, who'd been defending the lead from his own Mercedes teammate George Russell, retired from the race on lap 62 of 66, 4 laps from a finish that would have denied Hamilton the top step entirely. Take away that mechanical failure, and does this script even get written the same way? The result also produced a footnote of its own. Russell and Norris completing the podium alongside Hamilton made it the first all-British trio on an F1 podium since 1968, when Jackie Stewart, Graham Hill, and John Surtees shared that honor. 58 years between the two moments, and Hamilton at the center of both the record and the recreation. Planet F1 plus 4. Now split the number itself apart, the way any serious analysis has to. 106 career wins. Ferrari's own materials confirm it makes him the 41st different driver to win a Grand Prix for the team. And outlets covering the race noted that at 41 years old, it makes him the oldest Grand Prix winner since Jack Brabham in 1970. 56 years between them. That's not a small gap. That's most of a lifetime of Formula One history sitting between two data points. But strip away the ceremony and the anniversary numbers, and what's actually left is one win, from one favorable strategy call, in one race where the primary threat retired with 4 laps to go. Is that a turning point? Or is that a single good day dressed up as a turning point? According to the championship table itself, Hamilton went into that Barcelona weekend 41 points behind championship leader Kimi Antonelli, a gap that one win, however emotional, does not close on its own. Formula One plus 2. And the weeks since Barcelona have complicated the picture further rather than resolving it. By the British Grand Prix at Silverstone in early July, the championship math had shifted again. Antonelli still led on 179 points, but a technical failure dropped him out of the points entirely that weekend, while Hamilton completed the podium in third and closed to within 32 points of the top. The Silverstone weekend itself was chaotic on multiple fronts. Hamilton was handed a 5-second penalty for jumping the start, then found himself under a separate investigation after Lando Norris reported him for passing under yellow flags, a case that could have dropped him out of the points altogether had it gone the other way. It didn't. He kept third. But the margin between podium and nothing came down, once again, to a steward's decision rather than raw pace. Meanwhile, it was Charles Leclerc, not Hamilton, who took Ferrari's second win of the season at Silverstone, climbing to 4th in the standings, and, according to team principal Toto Wolff himself, giving Mercedes reason to brace for what he called a Ferrari challenge for the rest of the season. In the constructors' fight, Ferrari sits second on 255 points, still 78 behind a Mercedes team that leads both championships, even after a weekend that went badly wrong for its own title leader. So which is it? A genuine two-car recovery from a team that spent all of 2025 without a single podium, or two isolated results, 3 weeks apart, from two different drivers that happened to land in the same red car? Neither Ferrari nor either driver has offered a technical explanation beyond the strategy calls already on the public record. What the numbers can't capture is what Barcelona looked like from the podium itself. According to Formula One's own coverage, Hamilton was visibly overwhelmed, emotional, crossing the line to celebrate a win 2 years in the making, and the reaction from the paddock went beyond the usual competitor courtesies. His former team principal at Mercedes, Toto Wolff, the man who built 2 of those 7 championships alongside him, said on camera afterward, "I'm happy for him. In a Ferrari, he's waited a long time and has worked very hard to get back on the top step of the podium. Today, he deserved it." That's not a rival being generous for the cameras. That's the man who watched him lose the 2016 title to his own teammate, watched him miss out on an 8th crown in the most controversial finish in the sport's modern history, watched him leave for Ferrari at all, saying, out loud, that this one mattered. And the celebration reportedly reached well past the sport itself, with figures from Olympic athletics to tennis to skiing reportedly sending their congratulations within hours of the checkered flag, a reach that a routine midfield win simply doesn't generate. AOL, AOL. So, how good was Lewis Hamilton before Ferrari? The record answers that part cleanly. 7 titles across 2008, 2014, 2015, 2017, 2018, 2019, and 2020. 105 wins. A resume built from a Formula Renault paddock in 2003, all the way through to a rain-soaked title clincher in Turkey in 2020. A resume that doesn't need defending. The harder question is the one Barcelona reopened rather than closed, and Silverstone only deepened. Whether the driver who spent an entire season without a single podium, who got disqualified over 0.5 millimeter of carbon fiber, still has enough left to turn one emotional win and one hard-fought podium into a genuine title push, currently sitting 32 points off the top with more than half the season still to run. If Ferrari's form holds across both cars, and Barcelona turns out to be the first chapter of a real comeback, rather than a one-off built on a rival's mechanical failure, the story of Hamilton's move to Maranello gets rewritten entirely, from cautionary tale to third act. If it doesn't, if the steward's decisions and technical failures that have shaped these results so far stop breaking his way, then 2025 stops looking like a rough start and starts looking like the new normal, with Barcelona remembered as the exception. Which version do you think this turns out to be? Drop your prediction in the comments, hit like if you think Barcelona was the real turning point, and subscribe for the next update the moment the standings tell us which story we're actually watching.